to introduce my guest today, which is the amazing Helen Mac. And I was just reflecting, I think it was 5.5 weeks ago, we were in Australia together. We were having dinner, and to that convention where we were both at, and I still haven't been home. So, but the good news is that I get to go home possibly next week. So I'm like very excited. But it's wonderful to have you here, Helen. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Karen. That's a very long trip home, isn't it? You poor thing. I really feel for you. We had that was a moment in time. We were so fortunate to come together just before all this, and to be able to share energy and share ideas and get all motivated. And I actually think, even though you've had the longest trip home, nearly almost a title for a book, I think some of the ideas that you got at that conference have perhaps got you through this a little bit easier. And I reckon that that's part of what we need to do is maximise the opportunities that have come from this very difficult situation.
Absolutely, and that's of course what we're going to be talking about today. Helen really works around optimism, reinvention, and maximising those opportunities. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Helen.
So, Karen, I've been working in this area in various ways for a long time, almost longer than your trip home. No, I'm just kidding. But for decades, I've been exploring what is it about different people's attitudes that get them through easy and tough times. And I've been very fortunate generally in my life, but the additional layer for me happened a number of years ago when my now late husband became ill, and we had to really reinvent our lives, looking at changing the way we approach things. It certainly tested my theories on how to maintain a positive attitude, how to maintain my optimism during that time. And so as a result of that, having spent decades exploring these ideas of how do we maximize opportunities, how do we maximize outcomes in all kinds of teams, whether it be a school team, a family team, a work team, or whatever, I then added this extra layer of being able to look at things differently, from a different perspective, from a different point of view. And that's really come into play in this most recent time.
Yes, I have also an experience about 4 years ago when life was pretty tough, and I actually had to live the things that I taught. Which was really interesting. It was like, okay, I teach these, I go around the world, I'm privileged to be able to talk about these, but do these things really work? And hallelujah, they do. So
it's like turning your own world into some kind of weird laboratory and doing experiments on yourself.
Absolutely, and but very privileged, and so great that I had those skills that I was able to pull myself out, because of course if you don't have those skills, it's obviously going to be a lot harder. So
makes it very hard, yeah.
So tell us, Helen, about this idea of optimism, and why is it important at a time like this?
Well, the key element for me is the difference between positive thinking and optimism. So my belief is that we've actually been sold the wrong spectrum. So for years, we've all been told that, positive thinking is the way through, but positive thinking has a negative impact because it has a missing element. So positive thinking's all very good, maintaining that kind of attitude is useful, but there's no action imperative built into positive thinking. And that's where I started to explore, well, hang on, what is it that we need to do to be able to get those kinds of outcomes? And the difference is optimism, because optimism has a built-in action imperative. It has even the first three letters of the word opt. So that becomes our quest in these times, is what do we choose? How do we choose to behave? And then the other piece of optimism is it comes from the Latin. I never studied Latin at school, but it comes from the Latin optimus, which includes the search for good. So even in that definition, there's an action. We go and look for the best possible outcome. We seek out the opportunity in the difficult times. So having that attitude rather than, everything's going to be fine. Can you imagine if we had an everything's going to be fine attitude to the pandemic generally? We'd be in all kinds of trouble. What we've had to do is say, what's the best possible outcome and what steps can we take to get that outcome? What responsibility do we need to take ourselves? How can we reach out to help each other in all kinds of ways? What's the best possible outcome and what's a realistic set of actions that we can take?
And I hear you with that positive thinking, because for years I've talked about you can't just sit on the couch and say, I'm getting fit, I'm getting fit, I'm getting fit. And you can't go to the garden and just look at it and say, it's weed free, it's weed free. None of that works unless you do take some form of action. And I love that opting in and that choice and that searching idea. So rather than maybe just sitting still and doing nothing, it's about, looking for strategies and ideas. So what if somebody is feeling really stuck right now? What are some of the strategies that you might be able to use?
So there's so many things I want to tell you and all of your lovely tribe, Karen, but what I'd like to start with is just the 3 elements of an optimistic mindset and how to maintain that general approach, and then we'll get down to some little itty-bitty specifics in a little while. But the 3 pieces are that we need to have an attitude awareness. So it's not just about being positive, but it's about checking in on yourself, and by the way, also on the people around you. So whether that be your colleagues, your family, in the teachers' cases, your students, obviously that's part of the process, but checking in on other people. I like to say that face-to-face has been replaced by eyeball to eyeball. So it's still better to, like this, right? We're a country apart from each other. You're across the ditch from me, but we can still make contact because we can kind of see each other, and I think that helps. So, but attitude awareness is about looking for, how am I feeling, and is my attitude contagious in a good way or a bad way? And then there are lots of little ways to boost your attitude. Some of them are as simple as taking a time out, getting yourself away from the space you're in. Now that might, for a teacher, that might be setting a task for the class that allows you to just get up from your desk, move away, get a glass of water, cup of herbal tea, just go to the door and take a couple of deep breaths. Do something to shift your state. And also, I think importantly, as we go through this pandemic, not too much shoulding all over yourself. I should do this and I should do that. No, all we need to focus on is what we can do, what we are doing. So if you're having a bad day, that's okay. You're allowed to have a bad day. Don't beat yourself up. Do some little things to help. Apparently, and I know this works for me, just even simple exercise, rugging up if it's cold, which it certainly is where I am at the moment, and going for a walk in the fresh air. Human beings are waterproof. You can go out, get wet, come in, take your clothes off, you won't drown. So doing something physical, and if you can't, simply getting some fresh air, and often a glass of water just kind of washes down the mood, and you can move forward. So number 1, attitude awareness. Number 2 is to look at activity management. So attitude awareness, is your attitude a good one, and is it contagious? What do you need to do to adjust it? Number 2 is activity management. And again, you'll hear a theme here, Karen. Again, it's about opting for what you can and can't do. Focus on not being frustrated by all the things you can't do. And heaven to Betsy, there's a huge list. You can't go home. The teachers can't go to school. You can't have the usual chit chat around when you first come to school and you go into the teachers area and you have a cup of tea and a chat. Find out ways you can do that. Replace that activity if you enjoyed it with other versions. I don't know about you, Karen, but so far I've had a quarantine. I've had a virtual latte. I've had a couple of dinner parties. I've been to a bar. The bar was in Queensland. I was in Victoria. But hey, so there's lots of ways that we can manage those social activities, but also keep track of the activities that you're doing towards tasks that you want to achieve. Break them down into tiny bite-sized pieces, especially in these difficult times. So have you done any of that, Karen?
Yes, I have a weekly happy hour
nice.
For 5 o'clock on a Thursday. And I also have had a games night, played games. So there's been lots of fun things happening. And one of the questions, and we may come back to this, is I heard somebody say, why didn't we do this before?
I actually think that this is the new normal.
Yeah. Well, interesting. If I'm even thinking, I go home next week, do I continue it? Do I keep, I'm loving it. And so interesting. So attitude awareness.
Activity management, and the third is achievement focus. So BCV, before COVID, we all had big goals. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And as teachers, as principals, as senior teachers in schools, there was a real focus on, what's the big picture and where are we going? And you may have had major projects at the school, a whole class or whole year level. There were a number of things. And so we're used to setting goals and working towards them. What we need to do in COVID times is readjust that focus. And the second part is make sure that your ladder is leaning up against the right wall. So sometimes we get so busy climbing that it's hard to remember what was the goal meant to be at the end. So one of my favourite slightly lighthearted quotes is, when you're up to your R in alligators, it's pretty hard to remember that your goal was to drain the swamp. And at the moment we can get very caught up in the swamp, and we need to make sure that we're focusing on what do we want to do to get through this. And particularly for teachers, principals, everyone in the education space, we are really in a whole new world. And for some of your students, just getting through this period in a healthy physical and mental state will be an achievement. If their parents can also be in a healthy physical and mental state, that'll be a bonus. So we need to readjust our view of what achievement looks like. And it's a really good idea at the end of each day, no matter how hard it is, to go, what did I get done? Not, oh, I didn't do this and I didn't do that. What did I achieve? And sometimes it's just as little as I managed to contact that student and get him or her through that problem. I calmed that parent down and gave them some new resources. I came up with a new way of expressing an idea in a virtual way. Doesn't have to be I got a solution for the virus. So those three things will stand you in good stead, and they can all be broken into baby steps.
The idea of being able to think about what you've done at the end of the day. I posted something on Facebook yesterday that said, which camp are you in? Are you in the camp that you're so busy and, you're frenetic, or are you in the camp where you haven't even got out of your pajamas? And many people are saying a bit of both. But I've definitely been in a camp where I have been so busy. But Kat Coluccio did a wonderful Facebook Live the other day, and she said, you can't fail at lockdown. Don't get to the end of it and go, I just had 4 weeks or 5, however long it is, and I failed at lockdown. I can't even do that right. And she said, avoid that. What did you do today? And maybe what it is, I relaxed. Yeah. I actually just took some time out. And I've definitely, while you're in a colder area, I'm in Nelson, and I've had the most incredible weather. I've had my bikini on, and I've actually got a suntan in the weekends.
Oh my God!
It's just like, it's April. It's nearly the end of, or the middle of, to the woods of end of April, and I've never known weather like this.
We've got the fire on here, so thanks. That makes me feel much better.
So is everybody else in New Zealand, they tell me. But I'm like, this is just unreal, and so I've had to try and balance that and try and take my weekends and go, what I did today was I sat in the sun and I read my book. And
that's okay, because pre-COVID, we were allowed to do that.
Yes.
We were allowed to have weekends. We were allowed to have afternoons off. What's different? One of the funny things that's happened, I live in a small country town in Victoria, in the Macedon Ranges. And one of the things that's happened is that there's a very big problem with jigsaw addiction.
Jigsaw addiction. Yes, I've got
so
one
people are like getting desperate for, where's my next jigsaw fix? But what a lovely thing for families to be sitting around and doing jigsaw puzzles. It's there's all kinds of new things.
I go for a walk each morning. I'm on the hills, and it's a great workout. And I was walking down the hill the other day, and in one of the mailboxes was a jigsaw sticking out. So obviously someone's driven past and popped it in their friend's mailbox. So they're doing
very nice. They better pick it up quickly, or someone will grab it.
And I thought, I wonder if someone wants my one now I've done it.
It's the new currency. Jigsaws is the new COVID currency. You never know.
I love it. I know you have an acronym. What does that stand for?
So I was thinking about, I heard lots of people saying, we've got to stay calm, we've got to stay calm. And one of the challenges with staying calm is that it's actually not enough of an instruction. It's like, okay, what do I do? So I came up with an acronym to help people decide to work out what they need to do. And it'll work. It works for everyone in all kinds of circumstances. And the C stands for connect. So this is about reaching out, getting outside yourself. I think we are social creatures, and one of the lovely distinctions I heard that is that we have to do physical distancing, but we can still do social connection. So there's no reason why we can't stay socially connected, like you and I are now, and your lovely listeners. I saw Phyllis Briggs has just said we look like twins. That's pretty funny. I'm slightly more orange than you're red, but hey, we're close.
Yeah. So just so everyone knows, Helen always wears, pretty much always wears orange. That's her brand colour, and I'm pretty much always in red. So yeah.
So we kind of blend nicely together.
Yeah.
Anyway, so C is for connect, and it's really about, I think we need to be connecting creatively. So how can we connect? You know, can I make a phone call? Can I use? There's so many platforms that we can reach out on. Can I drop a jigsaw off to a friend? I've had a friend recently in town who ended up in hospital and sick, and so I would just, when I was cooking, I'd bake two of whatever. Well, I'm not a baker, but I make 2 casseroles, and I'd put one in a plastic container and just leave it on her front door and send her a text saying your dinner's on the front doorstep. How can we connect? And as you know, you and I were joking about all the ways that we can connect virtually. You know, I've also, as well as quarantine, I've heard of quarantinis, which is, you know, cocktail hour. I quite like that too. So connect creatively. How many ways can we connect? So the C is for connect. The A is for act. We've already talked about this a little bit. This is about focusing on what can you do, not what can't you do. And so again, it's about just breaking things down. And the lovely thing about it is if you focus on what you can do, and then you say, okay, what's the first step? Many moons ago, a speaker called Max Dixon, I met him in the States. He had this lovely thing called an SSDT, which was a single, simple, doable thing. And he would say, whatever the project, just choose one first step, do that. And part of my optimism teachings is do anything. So just do something. The universe will give you feedback. So you do a single, simple, doable thing. If it feels right and it gets a result, then you do the next thing. You look for feedback that might say, yeah, that doesn't quite work. So then you adjust and you do a different single, simple, doable thing. So C is for connect, A is for act. L is for listen. And there's 2 voices that you need to listen to. The first one is the voice that goes on inside your head. You know, those little voices that we sometimes hear. What I'm really saying, that's right. You need to worry. But we in these times when we're stressed, we often forget to tune into yourself. How are you feeling? How's your body feeling? How's your mind feeling? Do you need to rest? Do you need to speed up? Do you need to slow down? So listen to yourself. And then the second is listen to those around you. Now, for me, that's my family, my friends, my community, my tribe, both my Facebook tribe, my professional tribe, all of the people around you. For teachers, it's each other, it's principals with teachers, it's all of the teams within a school, it's listening to the students, and also now, even more so than before in a lot of cases, to the parents. I know a lot of schools have always been good at connecting and listening to their parents. That's even more important now. So listen to yourself and then really listen. And if you hear someone expressing a need, think to yourself creatively, can I help? And if I can't help, do I know someone who might be able to? And how can I reach out into my network and connect to people who might be able to help each other? So connect, act, listen. And the M is for monitor your mindset. And Karen, we've already talked about my favourite mindset. So work on being as optimistic as you can and make conscious choices to adjust your mindset along the way. So connect, act, listen, and mindset.
That's a wonderful acronym just to be able to help people to some practical steps when someone, you need to calm down or you want to suggest that somebody else calms down. Connect one, I think, has been really for the older generation. My parents had their 55th wedding anniversary last week.
Oh,
it was very exciting. And so I was able to set up a Zoom call with friends all around the world.
How fabulous.
They were just like blown away that, people from Australia and people from all around the place are beaming into their lounge. And my mum made a wonderful comment later. We were laughing because she did some housework the next day. And I said, Mum, that's the perfect party, isn't it? you didn't have to do the housework before the party.
No dishes.
No dishes. She said, that's what she said. She said people bought their own snacks and their own drinks, and we were just laughing. My parents are amazing hosts and hold amazing parties, but I just loved that idea that you don't have to do the housework beforehand.
That's really well. You do. You just have to clean the bit that can be seen in the camera.
Oh yes.
Tidy that up.
Absolutely. Put your best frock on from the waist up.
Yes. Best jewels.
Yes, that's the one. So calm, yeah. So this idea of, you talked about the contagion of attitudes, and I've been doing a lot of reading about mirror neurons, and when we're in, the mirror neurons for babies help them to be able to know what to do because they copy what we do. And when we're in this lockdown, the negative attitudes can be contagious too, because there's nowhere we can go. So what's some of your ideas and advice for people who are still, in New Zealand, we've got another week of, well, it's actually another 3 weeks, because level 3 isn't going to look a lot different unless you're an essential worker and you're actually going out. So what if you're stuck in an environment with people with attitudes that you don't want to catch?
Yes. How do you inoculate yourself against the negatives? Yeah, I think that the key is to focus on what you can do, but make some conscious choices. So you might decide to allocate specific time to you being alone. You might choose to address your Facebook friends list and maybe look for some of the people who are not sharing the things that are helpful to you, and maybe unfollow them. You don't have to unfriend them. Let's not be unfriendly. But if you unfollow them, or go through your Facebook feed as another example, and look for the friends who are delivering content that is uplifting, that is helpful, that is friendly, and make them your favorites or put them higher on your priorities. So then, for example, your social feed will be filled with that instead of the negative Nellies and the ones who are the naysayers. I'm also, for the kinds of things that I practice, is I keep an eye on what's around me. So orange is my favorite color. So I have orange as a reminder to me to maintain my attitude, maintain my mindset. And so choose a color that you like and put it around. Print something out on the web and put that in front of you, above your camera. If you're doing a lot of online work, especially teachers delivering classes online and so on, make sure that the wall above you is covered in things that lift you up. That pictures of where you're going to go on holiday when we do get out of all of this. Images of your friends and family who love you, looking down at you. So as you're looking at your computer, you can glance up, which is a nice place for your eyes to go. It gets your head in the right space, and put some images up there. Really think about what is happening in around your environment. And the other thing potentially to do is to allocate time, make appointments with yourself. Again, we were encouraged to do this before pre-COVID. Let's do that. An appointment to do an online yoga class, listen to some classical music, watch a funny TV show. Consciously think about what are you putting in, and that'll affect, because that's going to have a bigger impact on what comes out. Be selective. You absolutely have the right to choose the people you hang out with. At the moment, those are people you hang out with virtually. And we've got a great excuse, because at the moment it's really easy to say to someone, oh, look, I just can't, I've got to do something. They don't know, because they can't see whether you're going to be there or not.
I like it. That idea of being able to make a appointment with yourself. I love that. And I have a daily appointment with myself every day, lasts for an hour, where I do what I call my victory hour, courtesy of Robin Sharma and his 5 a.m. club. And it's not always at 5 a.m., but I do my 20 minutes of exercise, my 20 minutes of, thinking about the future, meditating, maybe goal setting, doing something to prep myself for the day, and then 20 minutes of learning. And so that's non-negotiable for me. It's like cleaning my teeth. And
that's a contract you've made with yourself. Yeah. Which is that hasn't changed just because we're here, right?
No. And I think something to be aware of for listeners and to viewers is that sometimes, so I'm not perfect. And so sometimes I don't do it. But I have another rule.
And the world's not going to stop.
And the world's not going to stop, and I don't beat myself up. But if I miss one, I don't miss two. So it becomes, if there's a reason, a circumstance that, I'm taking an early flight, well, maybe not soon.
Not at the moment. I stayed up too late last night jigsawing.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't be an excuse for me. But, but if I've got to be at the airport at 4 a.m. when I was going to Australia, I possibly won't do it that day, but I will absolutely make sure I do it the next day. So it's having those little appointments with yourself and keeping your own word to yourself, I guess, isn't it?
And sticking to it. So one of the other ways to lift your mood is if you're working on something yourself. So I'm just going to reach something on my desk. I use a kind of a version of the Pomodoro technique, only mine's a little happy smiley timer.
I love it.
Isn't he gorgeous?
Yes.
So if I'm trying to do a task that I'm not very keen on, I set him and he ticks away. And when he buzzes, then I've allowed 10 minutes to do whatever I like. Crossword puzzle, go outside, put my feet up, whatever, make a cup of tea, coffee, whatever. It's like my 10-minute reward time, and then I come back. So, things that you don't want to do, block it into bite-sized pieces, and then give yourself a little reward. And the other thing, I was thinking the other day about how incredibly fortunate we are. This is a horrible, terrible thing, and the resources that we have literally at our fingertips.
Absolutely.
The resources of meditation classes and music classes and virtual tours of museums and art galleries, and whatever your particular thing is, there's someone else on the planet doing it. And these days we can share in that. There's one that I love called the Sofa Singers. So there's like 500 people get on and sing together. Like, so whatever, I wouldn't do that. I'd frighten people. But whatever your thing is, you'll be able to find some other people that are into that and hook in with them. On Facebook, on LinkedIn, just Google. There's groups doing all kinds of things, and there's so much creativity. I was talking this morning to someone who did a ISO bin. What did they call it? So on bin night, you dress up to take your bin out, and you take a selfie of you in your fabulous outfit taking the bin out, and share it. Your rubbish bin. Yeah, so you when you take whatever night your your rubbish is being collected, you take that out to the front, because you're not allowed to go out, right? So you take it out, but you're in your finery. And so if you Google bin outings, there's people doing crazy things on bin night. Like, let's have this is very serious time, but we don't have to treat it too seriously.
Yeah, well, we can laugh at ourselves and have that fun.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good idea.
Absolutely. You reminded me that my sister linked me up a couple of weeks ago, and I did a online singing course. And so we learned a song in an hour and all the moves, and then you were supposed to go out on your front porch or outside and do it. But I live in a very sleepy sort of street, and I thought there'll be no one else doing it out there. But it was a great idea, and it was so much fun. So there has been so much creativity. Yeah. And one of the things I wonder is what happens after COVID. So you're into this reinvention, and I'm even wondering now. I know this time next week I will be packing, hopefully, and next Wednesday I'll be able to get on an airplane and go home. But there's a whole lot of things I'm thinking about now. One, I have been working from dawn till dusk. While I've been here, and I've loved it because I'm in my element. It's what I love. It doesn't feel like work. But I have been working full on. It was 10:30 last night when I stopped, and so I'm doing my morning routine and then working all day. My husband, who's more of a peaceful personality, is watching movies, and he's getting a few jobs done around the house when I've asked and said, hey, what about this job? And so I'm no judgment of that. But one of the things he's been doing is going for walks, and exercising nearly every day, which he's never done before, and making himself important. I wouldn't say never, that was the wrong word, but recently.
Less frequently.
And so my question is, and my pondering is, as I go home, and as people go into level 3 and then we go into level 2, are we going to keep some of these wonderful things that we've had? Obviously, I can't work 24/7 when I get home. And so what is that going to look like for me? And I have to make sure that I make my family really important. And obviously, my husband, when he goes back to work, might not be able to exercise at the time that he likes to, after lunch, afternoon tea time. And so tell me about some of the reinventions that maybe you've seen during this time, or that what your thoughts are about what we do afterwards.
So I think it's really interesting when we look back at before COVID, and now we're enduring, and it's this very strange world, and really no one was ready for this, and we've been making massive changes along the way. And then what is going to change PCV post-COVID? I think there's a number of things that are going to, one of the things that I'm really hoping is that parents have more respect for teachers.
I'm seeing a lot of that.
Because I think a lot of them are going to go, a lot of parents are going, oh my goodness, this is not easy. So this is a bit of an aside, but I think hopefully nurses and teachers will be more respected and paid better at the end of all of this. However, let's look at the bigger picture. I think some of the things that are going to stay is, well, I think one of the learnings that is really going to hit and stay is the importance of community and the importance of connection. I think that there's been reaching out happening in various communities and in various areas of the world in little subsets where we've found out who are our neighbours. I love one of the stories that people have been putting a little card, a handmade card, in people's in all of their neighbours' letterboxes, basically saying, "This is my name, this is my house number, here's my mobile phone. If you need me to do some shopping for you, bake you a cake, make you a casserole, pick up your medications, just call me." So I think community is going to be stronger as a result of this. And so part of our question needs to be, as individuals and as part of these communities, what am I willing to do to maintain those connections going forward? And what are we going to do about holding on to the learnings as we all travel into the future? So, for example, homework might be a whole different thing after this, because the parents have had an experience of helping their children do learning tasks that's completely different to what they used to do before. Yeah, kids, get your homework done was pretty much what it was, without any real understanding or knowledge of what was going on. Hopefully some of that will be different. And also teachers have had to get really creative about how to get learnings across. Maybe the homework schoolwork divide won't be as tight as it used to be. Kids are at school and then they go home and then they do something and then they come back to school. Maybe there's going to be a more of a blurred version of where those lines are from the school and education perspective. Maybe some of the connections that teachers and parents and principals and teachers and parents have made will be maintained in this virtual environment. What if there were brainstorming sessions where parents and teachers and principals got together on Zoom and looked at all the problems in the schools and worked on them going forward? You don't have to have, I'm having numerous meetings now where we're saying, why don't we continue to do this? Why do we always have to do it so that everyone's physically present? What would parent-teacher nights look like if the parents didn't have to do it after they've done a full day of work and fed the kids and found a babysitter, if they could just do it from their study? I think there are lots of ways that we can go forward, bringing some of the learnings that we've had over these. Well, we're hoping it gets shorter, but it's going to be months before it settles down. So let's think, 2021, what does the relationship between the schools and the parents and the bigger community look like, and how is that different to what it is now? How are we as individuals going to take the best of what's happened while we've been in this space and take it forward into a better tomorrow?
I'm hearing teachers talk about how the parents particularly, a small shift in some teachers realising that relationships are far more important than the academic achievement right now, and maintaining those relationships. And then parents realising that the work isn't as important as the relationships that are being had right now. And I think that is going to be a beautiful shift and change, particularly in the education field, if we can continue to know that it's the relationship the child has with the teacher, it's the relationship the teachers have with the parents, and
it's the relationship that the child has with education.
Correct, yes.
Because at school, some of the things that are learned at school are absolutely critical, and two of the things that are most important is how to learn and how to apply that learning, and then for parents to be able to reinforce that when the kids get home and help them apply the learnings that they've done in the more formal school arrangement. So I think there's great opportunities going forward.
Absolutely. I always say, if you had a magic genie and the magic genie was going to give you one wish, and you could wish for absolutely anything, the obvious answer is, of course, you're going to wish for 1,000,000 wishes or 100 wishes. You wish for more, right? And then I say, if you could learn anything, learn one thing, just learn one thing, what would that thing be? And for me, that is exactly what you said. It's that ability to learn. If you know how to learn, then the whole world is open to you. You have those 1,000,000 wishes. So,
and so I think for teachers at this time, it's also really important, and principals as well, but to teachers, it's really important to remember that the learning the kids are doing now might not be book learning or formal learning, but they're learning resilience, they're learning some independence, they're learning to learn in a different way. And if they don't sort of jump through all of the education hoops that are set in this next little while, they'll catch up. Kids are resilient, they'll catch up.
Absolutely. So that's a wonderful place to pause, I think. And particularly you mentioned the word resilience, because on Thursday I'm actually going to be chatting with Mick Walsh, who is a resilience expert. And so we're going to be talking about resilience wellbeing and just how do we keep maintaining that resilience during this time and particularly afterwards. Because I think while we're talking about what it's like in COVID times right now, while we're during, there are a lot of families who've lost their jobs. There's a lot of people who are going to struggle after this. There is going to be hardship and hard times.
Yep.
And so that optimism, that ability to opt and choose and look for other ways, that ability to build that resilience is going to be really important. And it could be the difference between, I guess, the haves and the have-nots of, our mental capacity and ability to be able to make those choices and have that optimism that you so beautifully talk about. So thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time in middle afternoon in Australia. And I will look forward to catching up with you at another conference. Who knows, at another time.
Maybe virtual for a while, Karen, but it's always lovely to connect with you.
And it is with you too. So thank you so much. And to all our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. The replay is still going to be available, and you can also get more of the replays at SpectrumEducation.com. And if you go and look for the tab that says TV, you'll find all the last episodes on there, and you can listen to the wonderful advice from the wonderful guests that I've had. So from me, it's a big thank you for watching, and a huge thank you to Helen for taking the time, and stay safe and keep learning. Bye.